Hey everyone, this is Steve from Natural Selection Angling, and today we're going to be doing another installment of our reel service series on a Shimano Tekota 600LC. This guy is in rough shape, man. The handle's loose, the keeper's gone. It's got a lot of boat rash, but my client wants to use this for a high diver rod, so it's great for that. But it needs a little bit of work to get there. It seems like the basics are okay. Handle turns, makes noise, counter works. We're going to use some screwdrivers here, Phillips head, straight head. We're going to use an 11mm wrench, pair of tweezers. We've got a stiff brush for removing grease, a soft brush for applying grease, and a craft knife, just in case we need it. We've got some degreaser and cleaner. We've got some reel butter and some reel oil. And we have a toothpick, secret weapon for today. All right, well, let's get into it. We'll start by taking off the side cover. Okay, we got that done. We'll take this beauty cover off, and then we'll take the side cover off. This is really, really dry for a Shimano reel. These are usually just flooded with grease. The spool should just come right out, but because the line's a little bit loose on the spool, it's getting caught. Have to wiggle it out. I'm going to stick a piece of tape on that and set it aside for now. All right, so just a quick inspection on the frame. Everything looks good. Pay attention to this little rod. It's going to come back to haunt me later. All right, now we'll take off the drive side of the reel. So we'll start with the handle nut. And it's going to come right off because there's no keeper and it's just loose. All right, we'll get that off of there. And wiggle the handle right off, and you can see there's a pair of washers stuck to the bottom. Just keep track of those. Okay, so you see this little hole in the top of the shaft here? This is what the toothpick is for. The noise maker for the drag wheel is down in this hole, right? So if you take a toothpick and you just jam it in there before you back off the drag wheel, it won't go flying across the room. But it's a spring-loaded noise-making pawl, right? And it'll just shoot out of there like a cannon. See it right there? I'm just going to put my finger on it, pull the toothpick out, turn it down so in case it pops, right? And this one's kind of stuck. So no harm, no foul. We'll just pull the pieces out. See how small they are? When those things go flying across the room, good luck finding them. All right, now we're going to start taking off the washers. I just keep them in the order that they're on there. And you're going to see that at the very bottom of all the washers, there's like a little dust cover. Other reels might have like a plastic bushing or something that covers the bearing, but this has a little like a gasket almost. And you'll see when I take this apart here. Got some small, thin copper washers coming off here. All right, here's that little dust cover or gasket. And I'm told that you can't order that as a spare part. I don't know if that's true. I never tried it. Here you can see a little piece of it that's been sacrificed. So I don't know if you can get it out of there in one piece and keep it whole, do that, because I'm not sure if you can get another one. And we'll just take off the side cover now. And there's two screws in the middle that are a little smaller. Take that apart, and basically everything just falls apart inside. All right, so you can see that little spring right there. Just be aware of that thing. There's the pinion gear that fell out. There's the yoke. A couple little springs. This is the spool tensioner knob, and we'll just take this right off. Have a look in there. This is what puts tension on the spool. And if you want it to free spool more slowly, you just crank that down. There's some Japanese hair in there. Long piece of black hair. That's a little roller bearing. I guess they're not wearing hairnets at the factory, eh? All right, so you got the roller bearing, and it has a little tiny thin copper washer that goes with it. And then here we're just pushing out this standoff, and it has two teeth on it. Okay, here we're just pulling out the entire jack assembly. And you could break this part down too if you want to, but I'd recommend just leaving it together. Here comes the drag washer stack. That's out of there. This is a very tight, close fit machining on this piece, so you do have to apply a little bit of force to pull it out. This is the main drive gear. On the back side, you'll see the small drag washer. This is the anti-reverse dog. It's a physical stop, and you can see what it does when you turn the reel backwards. It just physically stops it. Okay, that's that little spring I was telling you to watch out for. It came out, and it's a pain in the butt to put in, but I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so we're just taking the machine screw out of the standoff that holds the anti-reverse dog. And that's a little tiny screw, so don't lose that thing. And then it's got a little hold down. And let's pop that dog out of there. There it is. Okay. Moving on. This is the anti-reverse gear. Take that right out. And we're going to go to work on it with some solvent. This grease is really spent. It's like gelatinous. It's coming out in blobs. So I'm going to use a solvent and just let it work for a while. And then I'll get back to it and clean it. So if you've been watching my series on Okuma reels, You'll see this reel is built totally different. The architecture and mechanical arrangement inside are totally different. ABC, always be cleaning. I'm just using the toothbrush here to chase behind the Levelwind eye and dig down in there and get that dirty grease out. Moving on, cleaning out the needle bearings. Just giving everything a good cleaning. That center bearing there, that roller bearing, is really in bad shape. It's got a lot of sticky grease in it. All right, now we got to clean all this junk. The drag washers are in great shape. They're just really dirty, but they didn't sacrifice too much of themselves. They're not missing any material. We're just going to degrease and clean these and reinstall them. And this is going to be used on the Great Lakes in freshwater only, so you don't need grease on the drag. And that's what, is the typical cause of a slow starting drag, right? When you have to pull it with your hand or back the drag force off until the line pays out. It's typically because that grease is stopping the initial turning. So by taking that grease out of the equation, it kind of breaks the inertia when the line starts to pay out, and it'll be a lot smoother. Just going to put a couple drops of oil on this main drive shaft here. Okay, here's the anti-reverse dog. We're going to give this a good cleaning. There's little metal leaves on this, and they kind of just hug the anti-reverse gear. So I found the easy way to put these on is to just mount it first so you don't have to bend it trying to get it over the post that it sits on. So if you're careful, you could just drop this right onto the post in one shot. And then once that's on the post, you can rotate the anti-reverse gear until it sits down in the cutout. You can see that's working. It's a simple mechanism, but it's deadly effective. All right, now we got to deal with the tiny parts. This is that little hold down. You can put the screw through this first and then, put the screw to the tip of the screwdriver and sit it down as an assembly, which is easier to do. But what I'm trying to do here is show you how all the parts and pieces go together. So I hope by showing them one at a time, this way you can tell what their orientation is. And if you have to roll back the video, you won't be confused when you watch it the second time. Now we'll just take a little Phillips head tech driver and, with any luck, seat the screw down. Okay, we'll just hand tight that, and don't over torque it. Everything on these reels is pretty much hand tight. Okay, so you can see that's functioning just the way it's supposed to. Now we'll go ahead and get some grease on this thing. So we're using a company called Ardent, and this is their real butter. It does have the consistency kind of like room temperature butter. Okay, so now that's greased up. The small drag washer is down on the shaft. I edited that out for some reason. And now we're going to go ahead and put the main gear down on top. And this is, like I said, it's a close fit machining. So what I like to do is just put that on top there so that nothing can get damaged underneath or come apart while we're working on other stuff. It just makes a nice cover. So this is the jack, and you could take this C-clip off and take it all the way apart, but there's a little washer in between. I don't know why you'd take that apart, but if you did, it'd probably be pretty vexing to put it back together. So where the jack sits in the frame, we're going to give it a generous greasing. And then go ahead and lay the jack in there. So it needs to sit flat, and it needs to be underneath that pan head screw head, and you'll see that. There it goes. Okay, that's nice and greasy. We'll take a brush and spread it around a little bit, and just make sure that everything that jack touches gets a good layer of grease on it. The easiest way to do this is to put the top of the spring up into the metal receiver at the top, and then while that's pinned in place, push the other end of the spring into the little plastic post hole. And that's in there. It ain't easy. And then it gets grease. Okay, we're going to grab the other cover, and let's go ahead and grease the gears. Same with the spool. I'm going to give it a cleaning and a greasing. What I've found with this reel is that, the workflow is difficult to get the drivetrain on. So the easiest way to do that is to do the other side first, right? So when you put the spool in and put the other cover on, it's going to actually help you center up everything when you put the drivetrain together. So let's make sure there's some grease here on this gear, and then let's get that side cover on. Put the little beauty cap on and then set the screws. right. Okay, back to the other side. You can see here I've pulled the main drive gear off, and it's to get the pinion gear in. Okay, so I put the pinion gear in, it's all greased up. I'm going to put the yoke onto the pinion gear and then set it down on those posts. All right, so down she goes. No problem. Just make sure the yoke is greased. Okay, then back to the drag system here. Small one goes on the bottom. Then the main drive gear. Okay, we'll start loading up the rest of the drag system here. It's going to be a drag washer on the bottom, flat metal washer, drag washer. You can see how clean these are. Totally degreased. And then you have this eared washer. And it's just flat, but it has two tabs. And they have to line up with those little indentations in the drive gear. No problem. Another drag washer. Then we have this top washer. And just take a look at this before you put it on. It's got a concave side and a convex side. And the concave side faces down. And that's it. Okay, remember this spacer with the two teeth on it? That's going to drop over the shaft, and the teeth are going to mate with the slots at the bottom of the shaft. See that? Looks good. Okay, now, these little tiny washers, there's 4 of them, okay? And they go on top of these plastic posts, 2 on each. And eventually, when we put the cover on, the cover is going to butt up against those. So 2 on this post. And then notice I turn the reel before I go to put them on the other post, because if they fall, I want them to fall cleanly out of there and not down into the mechanisms where I have to take the thing apart again. So I'm just keeping that post at the lowest point and placing those washers. Okay, greasing the shoulders of the yoke. Now we're going to put these springs on, and just don't knock off the washers that you just put on. Okay, now here's the main trick, right? Now I've oiled this needle bearing and I've greased these gears. But here's the trick. We're going to use the little tiny hole, right? That's in the center of where the spool tensioner knob goes. And we're going to aim that right for the tip of the spool. And so that's going to automatically line everything up. And then we can gently compress those springs, because you'll see they'll fight you. You can gently compress those springs because you're center on center with the holes now, and then just pinch it with your non-dominant hand while you set the 2 screws that go in the center. That's enough to pin it together. And these screws drive right into those plastic posts with the washers and the springs. Okay, get those tightened down. And now we can let go of it without it blowing up on us. All right, the spool tensioner cap, I'm just going to put a little bit of grease in the center where the shaft of the spool touches. And then I'm going to grease these threads too, because this is a ingress point for water to get into the reel. And that's why it has a rubber O-ring on the male side. So check that and make sure that that's in good shape. But a little bit of grease in the threads just helps, block any water if it gets through or around a rotten O-ring. But if that O-ring's in bad shape, just replace it now before you do this. Okay, that looks good. Moving on. I'm sorry. First thing that's going to go on here is the bearing ring. And then it's going to have a thin copper washer that goes on top. And this whole post is threaded, so it might fight you a little bit. Now here's that little gasket, I guess. Okay. And you'll see it's kind of like a cone shape, and the cone should be facing down. So we're just going to push that down, and you'll see when it goes down, it's pretty effective at covering that gap. Okay, now on top of that, there's going to be a pair of these copper washers. See, there's two. I always try to put them on at the same time, but it almost never works. There goes one right there. Okay. Get that second one down. That looks good. All right, now you have a pair of flat washers. This one it's like brass on one side, and it's got a texture on the other side. The texture faces out. Okay, now you've got a pair of flat washers. Okay, so we got both those washers on there. And moving right along. And this is where I just realized that I screwed myself with that support bar. All right, now we got to reload this little noisemaker. And the first thing we're going to do is stick the spring in the pocket. That spring sits down in the pocket, and then we're going to take that little metal pawl and we're going to stick that down in the hole. Okay, now with our other hand, we're going to push down on the head of that plunger and compress the spring. Okay, and while that's pinched, we're going to stick that toothpick back in the hole again, which will stop it from backing out. And there you have it. Now, drag wheel goes on top. You can put it right over the toothpick. And once you get it on there and tighten it down, danger has passed. All right. It's clicking. You take the toothpick out, and if you tighten this all the way down, then you'll see just at the end of the stroke, you'll be able to see that little clicker mechanism is just peeking through. That's all the way down. Okay, now moving on to the handle. give it a quick cleaning, let the solvent eat the grease off of it. Don't forget, you got a couple washers. That stuff works pretty good. Clean up those washers real quick. Okay, washer 1. Washer 2. Now the handle. Right, nice. Now, because this is missing the keeper and I don't have a spare part and this is going to get fished right away, nobody can ever wait, I'm going to put a small lock washer down underneath this nut. And I'm just going to torque it down until that lock washer starts to dig, and then that should be safe. It won't back off or fall off. So now I'll put the rest of the screws in this cover. Now I'm sure everything works and I'm not going to take it back apart. Okay, now I had to take the other cover off again because I had to put that little bar in. I didn't show that to you, but it's simple. It just slides right in. But I had to take the side cover off anyway because I'm going to adjust the timing of the level wind. And the method I use for this is to just pull on the line until it runs all the way to the end of the spool, and then advance the level wind eye using the worm gear until it reaches its full travel and then slightly reverses. Okay, and I'm going to put this cover back on and just turn the handle a little bit to snap the gears together. Okay, now before I button it up, I'm going to check it, and you can see that that line is chasing straight out of that level wind eye. It's perfect. I'm sure some of you have seen where the line is literally going the opposite direction from the level wind eye, and that's a timing issue. It causes a lot of stress on the level wind eye, can cause you a broken pawl, and you'll see a lot more backlashes. Right, so I've just tied a big swivel on here. This is going to be a dipsy rig anyway, so big swivel goes there, and that'll keep it from losing its timing. Just some final checks. The counter resets, counter goes up, counter goes down. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on the clicker button and just work that back and forth. It was a little stiff. That looks good now. A little drop of oil here on the transmission lever and we'll work that part. Wipe off the excess. Little drop of oil on the handle knob. Give it a spin. That thing works good. Man, it's been great to be here with you guys today. Please like and subscribe because we can use all the help we can get.